of Alighiero and Boetti are here today. Standing next to me is our curator, Mark Godfrey, who also curated the exhibition of Gerhard Richter, and he worked at Tate Modern together with Kasia Recci to make this exhibition happening. But of course they were not alone, because besides Anna-Marie Sozo, besides Caterina Boetti, Mark and Kasia, there were also Lynn Cook at Reina Sofia in Madrid, and you know that Lynn Cook, she produced one of the last works with Boetti when he died in 1994. Lynn Cook knew him really, really well, and together with Lynn, Mark and Kasia, there is also, of course, Christian Raffelmeier of the Museum of Modern Art. And I was just saying to Christian, I was so curious to go to New York to visit the exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art, because each exhibition of Boetti in Madrid at Tate Modern and MoMA is entirely different, an entirely different game. So thank you very much for being here, and I hope this exhibition will be a revelation as much as it is for me a revelation. And I now give the word to Mark Godfrey. Mark.
Well, thanks very much, Chris. And I agree with everything you've said about the importance of Boetti for artists today. I think as we go around the show, that will become more and more evident how generative his work is for contemporary practice, even though he's not been around for almost 18 years. So the show starts off chronologically with this room and the next one, and after that point, you can go in any direction. We will go in one direction, you'll follow me, but as visitors come to the show later, it doesn't really matter which way they go around. The works in this room were made all between 1966 and 68, and they were made in Turin, and Boetti was born in Turin, and at that point in the 60s, Turin was a bustling industrial city. It was associated with the new industries and the economic miracle in northern Italy at that point. So there were Fiat car factories, for instance, and there was lots of construction. And Boetti would use the materials that he found around him and the colours that he found around him. So on the wall there are two of the monochrome works that he makes, where he uses the trade names of car paints and other industrial paints. He covers a surface with those paints and then uses the name of the paint with cork lettering on top. Whereas over here is a stack that's made from the kind of Eternit pipes that were used in construction. This is a typical object that he would make at this point. It was made in the same way that a child would build a stack of bricks. Very simple construction, just a pile, one thing on top of another. Well, behind you there you have the tower, which is called the rotolo di cartone ondulata, the roll of corrugated cardboard. And there he was thinking of the way kids will roll up a tape measure and push through the middle to achieve a kind of Tower of Babel. So again, he's looking back to child's play and using, these board boundaries are protecting the works whenever you go past an alarm will sound. That's also another industrial material, type of packing material that will be found in Turin. At the back of the room, and we've chosen to install this room as much as possible as he installed his first couple of shows. So this was shown in a corner in the first exhibition, the group show of Arte in late 67. These were shown in a grouping in early 67 at the Galleria Christian Stein. And then at the back, those three works were all in a show in 68 in Milan. A remarkable work. The first of these columns was actually made during a group show that he had in Rome. And of course he arrived in Rome from Turin and was impressed by the antique architecture and all the columns around the Roman temples. But he went to the cake shop, he bought doilies, and then he threaded the doilies over a sort of a metal pole and made this work called Colonna. And it's very witty, and I think it brings together something of his interest in lightness and playfulness, that a cake doily, when piled one on top of each other, will produce something that in some way plays with the history of Roman architecture. Lots could be said about all the other works, but we're going to move now on to the second room. So at the focal point of this room is this combination of this glass window with the work on the floor. And this was a pairing that Boetti put together in a show he had in early 1969 at the Galleria Speroni in Turin. The work on the floor has a long title, the translation of which is Me Sunbathing in Turin on the 19th of January 1969. And it's made with cement clumps. And he formed these cement clumps as you would form a snowball. And he laid them down in the shape of a man and then pinned a butterfly above the shoulder. And I think he was thinking about the idea of an artist. You know, what is an artist in a busy industrial city? Everyone else is working at the factories or working as designers, and Boetti is there sunbathing, lazing around, not working at all. And it's an extraordinary image of the artist as a kind of slacker, I think. But there's also this butterfly which suggests the kind of spirit and the kind of possibility that's beyond this idea of just merely lazing around. This work, which the translation of which is nothing to see, nothing to hide, is, I think, the work which announces his rejection of this idea of arte povera. It's a work which is quite enigmatic, even though it's very simply made, and asks you to really think about what it does mean to see an artwork. It frames a view onto the gallery wall, a view of nothing, but then again there are all the reflections, and you're sensitized in some way to the space around you. Now, at this point, 1969, it was a big turning point for Boetti, and he began to think more conceptually and to produce works that involved language, writing. Behind you, you see a video of a performance he made where he would write the date out with his left hand and his right hand at the same time, mirroring each other. And he began to think a lot about the figure of the artist and the artist as a split figure. This poster over here comes from a show he did called Shaman Showman. And he had the sense that an artist at this point was expected to be both a shaman, so a sort of private individual creator, and a showman, someone who would attend openings and be a celebrity figure. And he thought that these two roles were kind of incompatible. How was an artist supposed to be those two things at once? He made a number of works in which the artist was presented as split. There's a postcard in there called Twins where he's shown with his double. But I think he began to think that this wasn't a problem but an opportunity. So an artist could be lots of different things. And it led to him choosing to do lots of different things in his work. Some things involved going off around the world, some things involved spending a lot of time in the studio. Some things were very private, some things very public. So these works here, which are all about his thinking about what an artist is, are in some ways the preparations for everything you'll see after this point in the show. Now there are two directions out from this room, and it really corresponds with what goes on in Boetti's career at this point. We're going to go first into that room and then into the room, but it's also an outline of a place where people are being killed. And he began to collect newspaper covers whenever a map of a war zone was published. And between 67 and 71, he collected 12 of these front covers, and later decided to make works with them. The first work he made was an embroidery based on this map, which shows the territories occupied by Israel after the 1967 war. And the second work he made is these set of copper panels, which reproduces the newspaper images, except it gets rid of all the text. All you have is the date in the corner and the map. And you're left with a sort of confusion over what these forms really are. But you're also left with your own reflection. So whenever you look at the war zones, you see yourself. This is the first work where he's beginning to think about geographies. And by 1971, so by the time of the last of these maps, he begins to go to a new place. And that place is Afghanistan. And you'll see as we go through the show, Afghanistan becomes incredibly important for him. He would visit Afghanistan twice a year between 1971 and 1979, and he did lots of different things there. One was to set up a hotel. And he saw this hotel as a new kind of artwork. It was a meeting place for people to gather. It was a base for him to work from when he was in Afghanistan. And we have in the show a cabinet of photographs relating to the One Hotel and a postal work in which there are letters sent from the One Hotel. And these letters have drawings by Boetti and then text by his business partner, Gholam Dastagir. And the texts which we've translated are about what it's like to work at the One Hotel and how Gholam Dastagir feels that he should be paid more and what life is like in Afghanistan. But what's really crucial about the work is it's a first instance of Boetti giving space within his work for people from Afghanistan to say their own, to voice their own concerns. So at this point there are other artists who go to Afghanistan and take photos of exotic Afghans. Boetti doesn't do that, he lets them speak for themselves. This is the first of the maps that Boetti had embroidered. And you see here, this is the basis for that map. He filled out a school map, the kind of thing you'd see in a classroom, and he just filled each country with the design of its flag. And when he got to Afghanistan, he had a large canvas in which the map had been printed. He had it embroidered. You'll see later we have a whole room of these maps, but this map mentions the One Hotel at the bottom right-hand corner, and is the first of the maps to have been made. It was actually made in the Royal Needlework School in Kabul, and the king of Afghanistan was so taken by this that he actually wanted to buy it from Boetti, but it was sent back to Italy. I should say that these maps did not sell when they were first shown in Italy. They were very unpopular. At that point, Italian artists were celebrated for their work with glass and sacking and, I'm thinking all the things that Mario Merz and Cunelis used. When Boetti started to show embroideries, they were not popular at all. Chris mentioned before, now there's a sort of trend for artists using embroideries. That was not the case when this returned from Afghanistan. Now we're going to go backtrack on ourselves and go to 7. It's called Dama, or checkerboard. And Boetti was playing with he created a kind of domino checkerboard where each square has a number of dots and crosses which is mirrored in the square adjacent to it. But there is one error in the whole board. I can point it out for you because we noticed it the other day, but I won't. I'll let you find it yourselves later on. He also made these works with stickers where the same sort of domino thing happened. And again, there's one error in these works. And these are the first works where he's beginning to think about compositional games, forms of ordering and forms of disordering. Another hugely important work for him is this work over there on the back wall called the Contest of Harmony and Invention. It was done in 1969. It looks simple, it looks almost like nothing, but I think it's possibly one of the most significant works in the show. Boetti would take printed grid paper and go over all the lines in the grid paper only once. But of course, the quickest way to go over the lines is just to draw down them vertically and then across them horizontally. As you look at the works themselves, you'll realise that he never did that. He thought that an artist should never be about efficiency, and that an artist's role was to explore ideas of inefficiency and wastage. So, one of the ideas in this work is that the extraordinary time wastage of making these 25 drawings where you just go over all the lines of grid paper. He would also start some of these drawings by making messages, but the messages would disappear as all the lines in the grid paper were covered over. So the work, though seemingly simple, is full of lots of ideas that would be important to him about time wastage, about concealment, about language, and so on. The work on this wall over here brings out some of these ideas about ordering and disordering. It's made of 100 little embroidered word squares. These are made in Kabul. And in each, apart from one, you have the Italian phrase ordine e disordine, order and disorder. In one, you've got disordine e ordine. And it's important, and one of the things I realised as this work was being installed is that this is not just a scatter of these word squares across the wall. There are systems of ordering and systems of disordering. So there's columns, there's near pairings. There's a point where two of them line up almost as if in a grid. I think this idea of ordering and disordering was very important to Boetti as a means of making